Hey, my name's Flynn Carter. I'm 25 and I run this little bakery called Sweet Corner on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. Well, run might be a stretch. I'm the baker, the manager, and pretty much everything else rolled into one. It's a cozy spot tucked between a hardware store and a laundromat with mismatched tables and chairs I've scavenged from yard sales over the years. The place smells like fresh dough and cinnamon most days, and that's enough to keep me going. I live in the tiny apartment right above the shop, the kind with creaky floors and a kitchen that's basically an extension of the bakery downstairs. My life? It's simple. Wake up at 4 a.m., knead dough, bake until the sun's up, chat with regulars, close shop by 3 p.m., and crash early. No drama, no big plans. I've never been the type to chase after much else. Don't get me wrong, I like it this way. Baking's always been my thing. I started as a kid, helping my mom in our kitchen back home, and it stuck. There's something satisfying about watching a lump of dough turn into something warm and perfect, something that makes people smile when they take that first bite. But romance? Nah, that's never been on my radar. I had a girlfriend a couple years back, but she got tired of the flour-dusted clothes in the early nights. Said I was too stuck in a rut. Fair enough. Since then, I've been fine on my own. My mom's the one who's always pushing, though. She's got this idea that I need to settle down, start a family, all that. She's sweet about it, but relentless, which is how I ended up in this mess. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sky hangs low and gray over the city, making everything feel a bit muffled. I'd just finished a big order of croissants for a local office, and my hands were still sticky from glazing when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Flynn, honey, I need a favor, a big one." Turns out my older brother Rowan, 30, successful lawyer type, had set up a blind date through some friend of Mom's. She was all excited about it, calling the girl perfect wife material. But Rowan came down with the flu last minute, fever and everything. Mom begged me to go in his place. "Just sit there, be polite, tell her he's sick, it'll save face." I groaned, but what was I supposed to do? Say no to Mom? So I agreed, threw on a rumpled button-up shirt that still had a faint streak of flour on the sleeve, grabbed a cheap bouquet of daisies from the corner store on my way, and headed out. The meeting spot was this quaint little patisserie downtown, not too far from the waterfront. I was already 15 minutes late by the time I pushed through the door, the bell jingling softly above me. The place was warm, filled with the scent of espresso and fresh pastries, a few couples scattered at tables nursing their coffees. I scanned the room, looking for someone who might be waiting. And there she was, at a corner table by the window, sipping from a white mug. Emma Bennett. She looked about 32 with wavy brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail, wearing a simple blouse and jeans that screamed effortless style. Her eyes were sharp like she could size you up in a glance. But there was a softness there too, hidden behind a neutral expression. She wasn't fidgeting or checking her phone obsessively, she just sat there, composed, like she had all the time in the world. I walked over feeling like an idiot with the daisies clutched in my hand. Hi, are you Emma?" She looked up, her gaze steady. "Yes, and you must be... Rowan?" I shook my head, rubbing the back of my neck. "Actually, no, I'm Flynn, his brother. Rowan's sick, flu or something. Mom asked me to come explain so you wouldn't think he stood you up." I held out the flowers awkwardly. "These are for you. Sorry about the mix-up." She took them, her fingers brushing mine for a split second, and set them on the table. No flash of disappointment crossed her face. Instead, she arched an eyebrow and smiled faintly. "Well, that's a first. A stand-in for a blind date." "Sit down, Flynn. At least tell me why you're covered in flour." I pulled out the chair, chuckling despite myself. "Occupational hazard. I own a bakery nearby. Sweet Corner. Was in the middle of a batch when Mom called." She nodded, her eyes lighting up a bit. "Sweet Corner? I've been there. Your almond croissants are killer. I'm Emma, by the way, a finance consultant downtown. Not exactly as exciting as baking." We started talking, and it flowed easier than I expected. No forced questions about jobs or hobbies, just real stuff. I told her about the time I accidentally baked a wedding cake with salt instead of sugar, and she laughed, a genuine sound that made the whole room feel brighter. She shared how she runs every morning along the riverfront to clear her head from spreadsheets and meetings. It's the only time I don't feel like I'm chasing numbers, she said. There was no pressure, no trying to impress. We weren't on a date, not really. But as the rain pattered against the window, I found myself relaxing, forgetting this was all a mistake. She glanced at her watch eventually, but not in a rush. This was unexpected, but nice. I nodded. Yeah, sorry again about Rowan. She waved it off. Don't be, tell him to get better. And Flynn, I might stop by your bakery sometime. Those croissants call my name. I grinned. Anytime, first one's on me. We parted ways outside, her umbrella popping open as she headed to her car. I walked back to the shop in the drizzle, the bouquet's wrapper crinkling in my pocket where I'd stuffed a napkin she'd doodled on. It wasn't love at first sight or anything dramatic. Just a feeling that maybe, just maybe, showing up for that blind date wasn't such a bad idea after all. A week slipped by after that rainy afternoon at the patisserie, and I didn't think much about Emma at first. Life at Sweet Corner kept its rhythm. Early mornings punching dough, afternoons filling display cases with muffins and scones, evenings scrubbing counters until they gleamed. The regulars came and went. Old Mr. Harlan with his black coffee and blueberry turnover, the young mom from down the street who always grabbed a dozen cookies for her kids' school lunches. It was predictable, comforting even. But then, on a crisp Tuesday morning, the bell above the door jingled. And there she was. Emma, stepping in with a light jacket draped over her arm, her brown hair catching the sunlight filtering through the window. She scanned the room, spotted me behind the counter, and smiled. That same faint, knowing curve of her lips from our accidental meeting. Morning, Flynn, she said, approaching the display case like she'd been a regular for years. I figured I'd take you up on that croissant offer. I wiped my hands on my apron, still dusted with flour from the latest batch. Well, you're in luck. Just pulled some almond ones from the oven. On the house, as promised. She leaned against the counter, peering at the pastries. Deal, but only if you throw in a coffee too. Black, no sugar? I poured her a mug from the fresh pot and she took a seat at the end of the counter, the spot where I usually kept my recipe notebook. It wasn't busy yet. The morning rush wouldn't hit for another hour, so I found myself chatting while I prepped the next tray. So, how's the finance world treating you? Any big deals keeping you up at night? She sipped her coffee, her eyes crinkling at the edges. Always, spreadsheets don't sleep. But honestly, it's the little things that wear you down, like endless meetings where everyone talks but nothing gets done. I nodded, sliding her the croissant on a plate. Sounds like my bad baking days. You think you've got the perfect mix, but one wrong measurement, and it's all flat. She broke off a piece, flaky layers crumbling under her fingers, and took a bite. This is anything but flat. Seriously, Flynn, how do you do it? What's the secret? I leaned on the counter, grinning. Years of trial and error. And a grandma who wouldn't let me quit until I nailed her old recipes. We talked like that for 20 minutes. Her asking about the difference between puff pastry and phyllo, me explaining while I shaped dough for baguettes. It felt easy, no awkward pauses. Before she left, she bought a box of assorted pastries for the office and waved goodbye with a casual, "See you around." And she did. The next Tuesday, she showed up again, right as I was opening. This time, she lingered longer, sitting at the counter with her laptop open but barely touching it. Mind if I work here for a bit? Your Wi-Fi's better than my spot downtown, and the view's nicer. I chuckled. View of the parking lot? Sure, stay as long as you want. Over the next few weeks, it became a pattern. Tuesdays turned into her bakery office hours. She'd order her usual croissant and black coffee, then settle in, occasionally glancing up to watch me work. One morning, she even asked if she could peek behind the scenes. I led her to the back kitchen where the ovens hummed and the air was thick with yeast. This is where the magic happens, I said, handing her an apron. She tied it on, laughing. Magic? Looks more like controlled chaos. I showed her how to knead dough, her hands tentative at first, pressing too lightly. Like this, I said, guiding her without thinking, my fingers brushing hers. She got the hang of it eventually, and we ended up with a decent loaf. Not bad for a finance whiz, I teased. As the visits piled up, I learned more about her. Emma wasn't just sharp suits and spreadsheets. She had a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. One day, after a customer complained about a slightly burnt muffin, she whispered, "Bet they don't know perfection when they taste it." I laughed harder than I should have. She opened up in bits, how she loved early morning runs along the Willamette River to shake off stress, or how her penthouse downtown felt more like a hotel room than a home. "It's got all the views," she said once, staring out my shop window at the rainy street, "but no soul, no smell of fresh bread waking you up." I shrugged. "Well, this place has soul in spades, and rats in the walls every now and then." She snorted, nearly spilling her coffee. "Rats? That's the charm, right? Keeps things exciting." It wasn't all light, though. I started noticing the way she'd sometimes zone out, her eyes distant like she was carrying something heavier than her laptop bag. One Tuesday, she came in looking tired, dark circles under her eyes. "Rough night?" I asked, sliding her plate over. She sighed. "Just work. Deadlines that feel like they're sucking the life out of me." I didn't push, just nodded. "Well, if you need a break, you're always welcome here. No deadlines, just dough." She smiled faintly. "Thanks, Flynn. You have no idea how much that means." As she left that day, she paused at the door. "Hey, next time, maybe teach me one of your secret recipes. I could use a hobby." I agreed without hesitation. Walking upstairs to my apartment that night, I realized I was looking forward to Tuesdays more than any other day. Emma wasn't just a customer anymore, she was becoming a friend. And maybe, just maybe, something in me was starting to wonder if it could be more. That Tuesday routine with Emma had become something I looked forward to without even realizing it. She'd breeze in, grab her spot at the counter, and we'd fall into easy conversation while I worked. But one afternoon things shifted when my brother Rowan showed up at Sweet Corner. He rarely visited, too busy with his lawyer gigs downtown. But there he was, leaning against the doorframe in his crisp suit, eyeing the place like it was beneath him. The shop was quiet, just a couple of customers lingering over coffee. I wiped my hands and waved him over. "Hey, Rowan, what brings you here? Need a Danish or something?" He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Mom told me about that blind date mix-up. And now I hear Emma's been hanging around your bakery?" I shrugged, plating a fresh batch of scones. "Yeah, she's a regular now. Nice lady. Why?" He crossed his arms, that big brother look on his face. "Come on, Flynn. Mom set that up for me. She's got her life together. Penthouse, big finance job. She's not the type to waste time in a place like this." I felt a twinge in my chest, but I kept my tone light. "Waste time? She's just buying pastries, man. We're friends." He shook his head. "Friends? Look, I'm not saying you're not a good guy, but she's the kind of opportunity that could change things. For the family, even. Don't mess it up by, I don't know, getting too friendly." I laughed it off, but his words stuck. "She's not a prize, Rowan. And if she's here, it's because she wants to be." He left with a free coffee and a pat on my back, but the doubt lingered. Me, a baker scraping by in a dusty shop? Her with a skyline view and a career that probably paid more in a month than I made in a year. What was I thinking? That evening, as I closed up, scrubbing the counters, locking the display cases, my phone buzzed. It was Emma. "Hey, Flynn. Up for exploring Portland at night? I know a great food truck spot, my treat." I stared at the message, Rowan's words echoing, but I typed back, "Sounds good. Pick you up at 7? She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I changed into a clean shirt, nothing fancy, and met her outside her building downtown. She looked effortless in jeans and a light sweater, her hair down for once. "Ready for some adventure?" she asked, linking her arm with mine casually as we walked. We hit a food truck pod near the river, grabbing slices of greasy pizza topped with everything. Pepperoni, olives, even pineapple. "Don't judge," she said, catching my raised eyebrow. "Sweet and salty. Best combo." We ate standing up, laughing about bad pizza experiences from our past. Hers involved a disastrous client dinner. Mine was a late-night college binge that ended with regret. After that, she suggested swinging by a corner market for ice cream. "Cannon the night without dessert," she insisted. We wandered the aisles like kids, debating flavors, her picking chocolate chip cookie dough, me going for plain vanilla. "Boring," she teased. "Says the woman who likes pineapple on pizza," I shot back. We ended up back at Sweet Corner since it was closer and quiet. I unlocked the door, flipping on the low lights, and we sat on the old couch in the back room, the one I used for quick breaks. Spoons clinking against cartons, we talked deeper than usual. She opened up about a recent investment flop at work, a deal that went south, costing her team big. She laughed it off, but I saw the strain in her eyes, the way her shoulders tensed. It's fine, really. Part of the job. I set my ice cream down. You don't have to be tough all the time, Emma. It's okay to admit when something sucks. She paused, spoon halfway to her mouth, and looked at me. Really looked. It's been a while since someone said that to me. The room felt smaller then. The hum of the fridge in the background, the only sound. I asked her what she'd do if she wasn't in finance. Honestly, I don't know. I've been chasing promotions so long I forgot to ask myself what I actually want. She set her carton aside, her voice softening. What about you? If not baking, what? I thought for a second. Probably still baking. I like seeing people light up over something simple I made. Makes the early mornings worth it. She nodded slowly, her gaze holding mine. You're lucky, Flynn. You know what makes you happy. There was a vulnerability there I'd never seen before. She admitted the pressure at work was wearing her down, how she'd thought about quitting more than once, but never had the guts. Feels like I'm just going through the motions sometimes. Without thinking, I reached over and took her hand. It was warm, steady. If you ever need someone to listen, no judgments, I'm here. We sat like that for a moment, the air thick with unspoken things. Then she squeezed my hand back and pulled away gently, smiling. Thanks, I might take you up on that. It was late by the time we finished, midnight creeping up. I walked her to her car parked out front. Tonight was fun, Flynn, really fun. She lingered by the door, the streetlights casting a soft glow on her face. Me too, get home safe. As she drove off, I stood there, watching her taillights fade, my heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. Rowan's words echoed again, but they felt distant now. Whatever this was with Emma, it wasn't just friendship anymore. And deep down, I think we both knew it. After that midnight conversation in the back of the bakery, things between Emma and me shifted in ways I couldn't ignore. We didn't label it or rush into anything dramatic, no big confessions or sweeping gestures. Instead, it was subtle, like the way dough rises slowly in a warm kitchen. She'd text me midweek with something simple. Craving one of your scones. Save me one? And I'd find myself smiling at my phone, setting aside the best from the batch. Our Tuesdays expanded. She'd drop by more often, sometimes on Thursdays too, lingering after the lunch crowd thinned out. We'd talk about everything and nothing, her latest running route, my failed attempt at a new lemon tart recipe. But underneath it all, there was this unspoken pull, a warmth that made the shop feel even cozier when she was there. It didn't take long for the outside world to notice. Portland's not a huge city, and word gets around, especially in circles like Emma's. One afternoon she came in looking a bit off, her usual spark dimmed. She slid onto her stool at the counter, ordered her coffee, but didn't touch the croissant I placed in front of her. Rough day? I asked, wiping down the espresso machine. She sighed, stirring her mug absently. You could say that. A friend, well, more like a colleague, pulled me aside at work, asked why I'm spending so much time with that baker guy from the suburbs. She air-quoted the words, her voice laced with sarcasm. Said I could do better than slumming it in a flour-dusted shop? Like you're some kind of downgrade. I paused, the rag still in my hand. It stung more than I expected, echoing Rowan's warnings from weeks back. People talk. Doesn't mean they're right. She met my eyes. I know, but it got me thinking about us, about what this is. We didn't dive deeper right then. A customer walked in, and the moment passed. But it planted a seed of doubt in me. Was I holding her back? She had this polished life downtown with high-rises and high-stakes deals. Me? I was content with my ovens and early bedtimes. The whispers didn't stop there. A few days later, one of my regulars, an older guy who came in for black coffee and gossip, leaned over the counter with a wink. Heard you've got a fancy lady friend stopping by. Careful, son, she might whisk you away to some penthouse or eat you alive. He chuckled like it was a joke, but I forced a laugh, feeling the weight of it. Even Mom called that evening, her voice tentative. Flynn, honey, Rowan's mentioned Emma's been around a lot. She's lovely, but are you sure? She's from a different world. I brushed it off, but inside the question swirled. What if they were right? What if this was just a phase for her, a break from her real life? I didn't voice any of it to Emma, though. We kept things light, but I could sense her pulling back a little too, like the doubts were creeping in on her side as well. Then came the weekend that changed everything. It was a slow Saturday, the kind where the rain kept most folks indoors, but Emma texted early. Mind if I come over? I want to learn how to bake something. For your mom, actually. She mentioned her birthday's coming up. I was surprised but said yes. She showed up in casual clothes, yoga pants and a soft hoodie, carrying a bag of groceries she'd picked up. I figured we'd make those lemon bars she likes. Teach me your ways, Master Baker. I laughed, tying an apron around her waist. The kitchen in the back was my domain, warm from the ovens, counters dusted with sugar. I walked her through the steps, zesting lemons, mixing butter and flour for the crust, whisking eggs for the filling. She was a disaster at first, cracking an egg too hard, shell bits everywhere, then spilling half the flour while stirring. Oops, she said, giggling as white powder puffed up like a cloud. I grabbed a towel, kneeling to wipe the floor. No worries, happens to the best of us. She joined me, our hands brushing as we cleaned, laughter echoing off the walls. In that moment, amidst the mess, she went quiet. I looked up and her expression had softened, eyes serious. Flynn, she said, sitting back on her heels. I've been thinking a lot about us, about my life downtown. My heart skipped. Yeah? She took a breath. That penthouse? It's empty. Beautiful views, sure, but no one to share them with. Work's the same, endless but hollow. And then there's you, this place. It feels real. Alive. She paused, her voice dropping. I want to move in, here with you. Leave the penthouse behind, help with the bakery if you'll have me. I know it's crazy, but I cut her off, stunned. Move in? Emma, are you sure this isn't glamorous? Early hours, tight space, flour everywhere. She nodded, her gaze steady. I've never been surer. Those whispers from my friends? They don't get it. I don't need the high life. I need this, laughing over spilled flour, feeling like I belong somewhere. I set the towel aside, my mind racing. But what about your job? Your world? She reached for my hand. I'll figure it out. Maybe go part-time or freelance. Flynn, you've shown me there's more to life than chasing status. You make me laugh, make me think. If you're worried about not being enough, I squeezed her hand. That's exactly it. I'm just a baker. What if you regret this? She shook her head, pulling me closer. You're not just anything. You're the guy who showed up for a blind date he didn't want, who listens without judging, who builds things with his hands that make people happy. That's enough for me. More than enough. We sat there on the kitchen floor surrounded by the faint scent of lemon zest, and I felt something break open inside me, the fear, the doubt. I pulled her into a hug, her head resting on my shoulder, and we stayed like that, no words needed. It wasn't a kiss or a grand declaration, just a quiet acceptance. When we finally stood, brushing off the flour, I knew we'd crossed into something new. The next few days blurred as Emma made arrangements. She listed her penthouse, packed what she needed, and showed up at my door with boxes and a grin. Ready for chaos? She asked. I helped her unload, stacking her things in the cramped apartment upstairs. Our first night together was simple. Take-out Chinese on the couch, talking until late. But already the space felt fuller, warmer. Mornings became shared. Her helping with the dough while I brewed coffee, our hands brushing over mixing bowls. There were hiccups, arguments over how to organize the tiny kitchen, or when the oven broke mid-rush and we scrambled together. But through it all, I saw her unwind, the tension from her old life fading. And me? I realized she wasn't here out of pity or novelty. She chose this, chose me, because it felt right. Because in the quiet mess of my world, she found peace. For the first time, I stopped questioning if I was enough. She made me believe I was. A year had passed since Emma showed up with her boxes, turning my cramped apartment above Sweet Corner into our shared home. It wasn't a whirlwind transformation, no fairy tale montage of instant perfection. Instead, it unfolded gradually like one of my slow-rising sourdoughs. The bakery had picked up steam, partly thanks to her. Emma, with her finance smarts, suggested a few tweaks. A simple social media page showcasing our daily specials, partnerships with local offices for catering gigs. Nothing flashy, but it worked. We went from scraping by to actually turning a profit some months, enough to fix the leaky roof and repaint the faded sign out front. The regulars noticed the changes, too. Mr. Harlan even joked that the place had a woman's touch now, winking at Emma as she refilled his coffee. Our mornings became a ritual I never knew I needed. I'd wake at my usual 4 a.m., but now she'd stir beside me, pulling on an old sweater over her pajamas to join me downstairs. "Hand me the flour?" she'd ask, her voice still sleepy, as we prepped the first batches together. Her hands, once more at home on a keyboard crunching numbers, now dusted with powder as she shaped rolls or glazed pastries. She kept her finance job part-time, working remotely from the back office we'd cleared out. A desk squeezed between sacks of sugar and the old fridge. "It's the best of both worlds," she'd say, tapping away at spreadsheets while the ovens hummed. Afternoons, she'd help at the counter during rushes, charming customers with her quick wit. "Try the lemon bars," she'd recommend. "Flynn's secret recipe, guaranteed to brighten your day." And they'd buy extras just because she said so. The apartment felt alive now, too. 2 aprons hung side by side on the hook by the door. Mine worn and stained, hers newer but already showing signs of use. Shoes piled up in the entryway, my scuffed work boots next to her running sneakers. Evenings were simple pleasures, me cooking dinner in our tiny kitchen, her washing up while we debriefed the day. "That kid who came in for cookies? Adorable," she'd say, drying a plate. I'd nod, flipping burgers or stirring pasta. "Yeah, but you handled the grumpy lady like a pro." We'd eat on the couch, feet tangled under a blanket, watching whatever was on TV or just talking. Sometimes she'd leave sticky notes on the fridge. "You're my favorite baker and person, XOE." I'd find them in the morning, tucked into my recipe book or stuck to the coffee pot, and they'd make the early hours fly by. Not everything was seamless, of course. We had our moments, little arguments over silly things like how to load the dishwasher or when to order more supplies. Once, after a long day when the oven timer failed and we burned a whole tray of muffins, she snapped about the chaos. "This place is a madhouse sometimes," I paused, then laughed. "Yeah, but it's our madhouse." She softened, pulling me into a hug amid the smoky kitchen. "You're right. Wouldn't trade it." Those hiccups only made us stronger, reminders that we were building something real, not some polished fantasy. Family came around eventually. Mom stopped by one weekend, arms full of groceries like always. At first, she'd been wary, whispering concerns about Emma downgrading from her penthouse life. But seeing us together, laughing as we unpacked, she warmed up. "You two make a good team," she admitted over coffee, watching Emma frost a cake with surprising skill. "I thought Rowan was the match, but this suits you, Flynn." She even teared up a bit, hugging Emma before leaving. "Welcome to the family, dear." Rowan swung by a few weeks later, looking sheepish in his suit. "Hey, man, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about everything. Emma seems happy, really happy. You did what I couldn't." I clapped him on the back. "No hard feelings. She's one of a kind." He nodded, grabbing a pastry to go. "Treat her right." The outside noise faded too. Customers would ask Emma point blank sometimes, curiosity getting the better of them. "Don't you miss that fancy penthouse life?" one regular probed while paying for her loaf. Emma just smiled, handing over the change. "Not a bit. No penthouse has croissants this fresh. Or a guy who makes them with love." She'd glance at me across the shop, her eyes twinkling, and I'd feel that same pull from our first meeting. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about us. We'd take evening walks around the neighborhood, hand in hand, the streetlights flickering on as dusk fell. "Remember that blind date?" she'd say sometimes, leaning into me. "Best mistake ever." I'd kiss her forehead. "Yeah. Who knew showing up late with daisies would lead to this?" In the quiet moments, I'd reflect on how far we'd come. Emma had sold her penthouse without regret? funneling some of the proceeds into the bakery's upgrades, a new mixer, better signage. But more than that, she'd found her rhythm here. No more distant stares or forced laughs. She was present, alive in the daily grind. And me? She'd pulled me out of my comfortable rut without me even noticing. I wasn't just baking for strangers anymore. I was building a life with someone who saw me, the real me, flour stains and all. We didn't talk about marriage or kids yet, there was no rush. But we'd hint at it. Her mentioning how the apartment could use a bigger table for family dinners. Me daydreaming about teaching our hypothetical kids to knead dough. One night, after closing, we stood outside the shop, the Sweet Corner sign glowing softly above us. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and cool. Emma slipped her hand into mine. This place. It's home now. I pulled her close. Because of you. We didn't need grand promises or fairy tale endings. Happiness wasn't in the penthouse views or the bakery's bottom line. It was in the shared aprons, the sticky notes, the way we'd laugh over burned batches or celebrate a sold-out day. We'd both taken a chance. Her stepping away from her polished world, me opening up to something more than my ovens. And in that choice, we'd found exactly what we needed. Each other. As the lights in the shop dimmed for the night, I knew this was enough. More than enough.